When I'm not making it rain with my Bitmoji, I like to answer questions that I get on YouTube, so let's get to it. What do you think of the Jazz 3 pick? Several of my friends swear by them. I stole one and enjoyed it, but just got a nylon wedgie, which I'm enjoying. Do you have a favorite pick? I had a copper one that I lost and can't replace. You stole a Jazz 3 pick. Shame on you. But yeah, actually, I love the Jazz 3s, and semi-recently, I've made it my main pick. And actually, the Tortex 1.14 millimeter Jazz 3 is kind of my go-to one. I just kind of like the grip. It has like the classic Tortex grip on a Jazz 3 style pick. And I tend to kind of grip that better than the more plastic ones with the ridges and stuff like that. So I'm a huge fan of the Jazz 3 picks. I kind of gravitate back and forth between that and the 2 millimeter chicken pick, depending on what I'm doing. Is if it's like an electric thing that requires like a lot of like speedier stuff, I feel like the chicken pick kind of lets me power through it. But for the most part, I love Jazz 3s, and I would highly recommend anybody like check them out. At first, I didn't like them so much, but you know, once I got used to them, I think they just offer like a greater measure of control. The other one that I kind of go back and forth to is the Dunlop Gator Grip 0.71 millimeter pick, which I think is really good for acoustic guitar strumming. Like if I'm playing like really not a lot of... If I need something that doesn't have as sharp of an attack, like on an acoustic guitar or something like that, I kind of like the flimsiness of more of like a medium standard size pick. As far as like the other kind of like materials, like copper or aluminum or wood or stuff like that, I'm not a huge fan of just how they feel, even though they do kind of like bring a bunch of different tonal options. Honestly, I'm not really like a huge stickler for certain types of picks. Like for the most part, I just kind of play whatever I have around. But I try to carry Jazz 3s with me, even though I lose them all the time. But I guess that would be my go-to pick. Is the Infinity worth it? It looks so nice, but that price. So this is a direct response to the looper pedal I did with my Pigtronix Infinity looper, which is kind of fairly new to the arsenal. And it is, you know, one of the more expensive. It's not the most expensive looper, but it's definitely more expensive than ones you can get. And I actually upgraded to that from a Boss RC50. And the reason I ended up getting that is because, to me, for what I was doing, the RC50, I would always notice like a slight degradation in sound, be it the converters or whatever it was. But I could definitely, like, once I hit a loop, I could hear like there being like a loss of like fidelity in the sound. And I was just really kind of like nervous about that, even though the RC50 was kind of like an older one. I think it was like probably like 7 years old. And I know that loopers are a lot better now, audio quality wise and conversion wise. But anyways, I just heard a lot of awesome stuff about the Pigtronix stuff, and really I like had more live application uses for it. So I kind of needed something that like I thought was going to sound really, really good. But that's not to say you can't find like a really good one for cheap. Like the Dittos are really good. The TC Electronic one is like really good. And I mean, there's a lot of ones out there for like $100 as far as like a looper, just depending on what the features that you need. So really like the Boss ones, all this stuff is great, especially for just kind of like practice. But for like a live thing, I'm glad I got the Pigtronix one because I definitely feel like it's worth paying up for. Do any of your students watch your channel? So the thing about my students is they're very supportive of the channel, and I think they think it's cool, but really like the move that they do is they'll click on the video, hit the thumbs up button, and then instantly exit the video. So they have no idea anything that I'm doing teaching wise, and really they try to fight me on the theory. Like if I'm ever trying to like actively incorporate theory or give like lessons on theory or whatever, they always try to fight me because most students I would say kind of like prefer like song-based lessons, so I kind of have to sneak all the theory stuff in on the down low. So I'm never really worried about flaming my students on this channel because none of them ever make it far enough into the video to actually notice what I'm talking about it. Now, if you are one of my students and you see this, please mention it and maybe I'll give you some kind of reward or something. Hi, I'm wondering if a mode like the Dorian mode has 5 positions like the pentatonic scales. Could you please make a video explaining modes and positions? Thanks, love the video. So I've been talking a lot about modes in the series I'm doing with Ian every Sunday, and that's actually a really good question. So just to kind of clear that up, like, you know, the pentatonic scale is a 5 note, like pent meaning 5. There's 5 notes, so every note can be its own root note, thus there are 5 positions to the pentatonic scale. Now, the Dorian scale or the Dorian mode has 7 notes, so you can see it as 7 different positions. But I think instead of looking at modes and thinking of positions of different modes, I think the modes themselves are best looked at as positions of the major scale. So there's just one massive parent scale, the major scale, which there are 7 notes, and each one of those notes gets their own position, and each one of those positions can be its own mode, right? So like in G major, you'd have the G major scale, and then you play the notes of G major starting on an A, and that would give you the A Dorian scale. So instead of thinking of like, you know, what's the 7th position of Dorian, that's really just like the major scale. So that's just kind of how I see it. And I know some people don't like thinking of modes as positions. They just think of the major scale having positions and playing modally as an alteration of that, stuff like that. To me, I think it's a great way to use the modes to think as positions in the major scale and get those down until you really have the fretboard kind of like memorized and figured out, and then you can kind of incorporate more of like the modal things that give each position or the intervals within the modes their distinct flavor. What do you think of Jack White and his play style? I think Jack White is the man, and he's probably like, unlike the Pantheon for me, unlike my guitar Mount Rushmore. I know the White Stripes were really blowing up at the exact time that I started learning guitar, so it was really kind of like the perfect setting for me because White Stripe songs in particular are really accessible. They're not super hard to play, especially the rhythm stuff. So if you're just kind of starting out, definitely check out a lot of White Stripes and Jack White stuff because he's one of those guitar players, and to me, the best writing on guitar is something that you can do to keep simple and accessible for everybody, but still kind of like have a unique sound. So he definitely has a very signature sound that a lot of people are trying to duplicate. But I think he's just like a fantastic songwriter, and you can tell that his writing kind of translates to other instruments and stuff too. So I definitely remember when Elephant came out. That was kind of like the first album I bought from the White Stripes, because again, that was like the time I started playing. But Elephant came out, and it totally like changed my world guitar-wise, and I learned every single song on that album, and I just learned like the true power of power chords in his writing. So yeah, huge Jack White fan. So keeping with the Jack White theme, I want you to check out the song Lazaretto off his solo album. If you have not heard Lazaretto, I think like the first like minute and a half, 2 minutes is probably the most rocking thing in the history of rock music. And after that, it kind of gets, you know, a little spacier or whatever, but definitely check out like the first minute and a half of Lazaretto because it's an awesome riff, it's a fantastic vocal delivery, and just like a really cool song. So I'll learn how to play it too. I'll link you to a tab if you want to kind of check out how to play the riff and stuff too. But yeah, as always, if you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section or Twitter or Instagram, and I will get at you soon. Thanks.